Something occurred to me again this week that is I've seen many times regarding burnout and exhaustion within the callings of the church, and how I've seen many people, several people, get so frustrated and burnt out and exhausted in their calling that they literally break down in tears over their calling or what they perceive as their responsibilities. So I thought I would give some ideas, suggestions from my experience and others of how to avoid burnout and exhaustion. And nothing revolutionary. It goes along the same lines of thinking outside the box. But a lot of people don't give themselves permission to do this. So I wanted to talk about it for a second. Because most people, when they think about callings, they get the calling and they immediately start listing out in their minds or even sometimes on paper the list of expectations that come with the calling. And part of that is because we have a handbook, a manual that gives us a list of expectations. And that's a difficult thing to break through because it feels like limitations and restrictions. And oftentimes, when you feel burned out or exhausted, it's because of those limitations. It's because you have put in front of yourself a list of expectations and you're trying to check the list of all the expectations, and it's exhausting. And so this comes in many forms, but a classical way that I like to think about it is the elders quorum and the visits, and same thing with Relief Society. And somehow we get in our mind that X number of visits a month means that I'm a good leader and that my group is successful if we can log X visits a month. And it's a made up number. And nobody's tracking it and nobody cares. And it's just something we invented because we want to be successful. And we feel like if we just meet a number, then we can be successful. Callings are not a list of expectations. Callings are opportunities to serve. And you really don't get an opportunity to see that at its fullest until you free yourself from the expectations and give yourself permission to fail, which is very hard to do. It's very hard for most people to just give themselves permission to fail in their callings, meaning give themselves permission to not meet the expectations of the handbook or other people or whatever expectation, wherever they're coming from. Because as soon as you do that, as soon as you say, I'm not going to meet these expectations, you have to come up with an alternative plan, and the Spirit is free to inspire you when you do that with all kinds of new ideas. And it's wonderful because you're not limited by the expectations and you're coming up with creative solutions as inspired by the Spirit. And as soon as you start doing it, you realize this is how the church works. This is how God works. This is how revelation works. This is how the restoration works, is people trying new things outside of the preferred guidelines. And we find things that work, and then those become the new guidelines and standards and expectations. And it's great. But for those of us who are struggling with calling exhaustion, it serves a second purpose, which is to free ourselves of the exhausting expectations, to renew that spirit of enthusiasm within our callings. And one of the things that's interesting to me, because I see it at church and at work, is that you'll see people get a new assignment. When they get a new assignment, they're flooded with these ideas because they've been observing something for a while and they don't like the thing that they've observed. Now they're put in charge of that thing and they've got these ideas to make improvements on all the things they didn't like. And so you do those things as the new leader. And then after you do those things, you now get used to the new normal from the changes that you've made. And it's hard to continue to have the same enthusiasm as when you first got in. And this is why turnover is very common in a lot of roles, because you want new ideas, fresh perspectives coming in all the time. Well, you can do that consistently and constantly. It's hard, but you can do that. You can have fresh perspectives, asking yourself questions like, what would I do if this was the first time I was considering this? Or if I had to start over? Or if I had a blank slate, how would I do this from scratch? Those types of questions really bring to light the inspiration that God has in store for the stewardship that you have. And again, the secondary effect that's so wonderful is that it's really hard to get burnt out. It's really hard to get exhausted when you feel inspired to lead the saints in new ways. And so, my recommendation, well, even more than that, what I've seen with people who are struggling with callings is that if they can do this, they are reborn in their calling. They find a new energy and a new spirit, a new enthusiasm because they put aside all of these lousy expectations and they just accept that they're going to do things differently. And maybe some people won't like that. But if they truly seek out the spirit, they will take a step forward, take a step back, take two steps forward, take a step back, and they'll move forward with mistakes faster than they would have trying to meet all these expectations. And it's a wonderful thing to see. I've seen it many times, even myself and other people, even currently seeing it in the ward, and it's a lot of fun. So, lot, could go on forever about the topic, but want to kind of beat that drum. Think outside the box. How would you do it differently if you're starting over? What would things look like? Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to meet or not meet expectations. And you will love your calling even more. All right, see you.